The Yankees, with their first pick in the first round, they picked Anthony Volpe. And we know the batting average, 488, all of that. If you can, Coach, tell us about Anthony Volpe, the player first. We'll talk about him off the field, but just tell us about the player first from your vantage point.
Well, Anthony, the first time I saw him, he came to our summer camp. He must have been 13 years old, and he was undersized. I was a little skeptical, to be honest, of all the hype that surrounded him. I mean, this is a boy that's been in Team USA's program for at least 5-6 years, and it's hard to project how a kid's going to turn out when he's 18 years old. But at our camp, I saw him hitting our batting cage, and I saw him take ground balls. And from the first moment I saw him pick up a ground ball, I knew that he could defend at a high level. Offensively, the swing was there. He needed some strength and size. But, as a coach, the thing that I appreciate, and I've learned to appreciate, is how a boy can change from year to year. And every year, freshman to sophomore year, he made a significant jump, sophomore to junior year. And then the jump he made junior to senior year was off the charts in terms of his physicality. So now he stands about 5'11", 180 pounds. He's strong as an ox. He can really run. Like I said, he really defends. And offensively, he's I would say a contact hitter, but now he's got that power to go along with it. His hands are always inside the baseball. He has the ability to hit the ball to all fields. But the biggest thing that separates Anthony is his IQ. His baseball IQ is through the roof. His instincts are off the charts. In 2017, I remember in the North Final against Pope John, he should have been covering second base on a double steal. Well, our catcher threw a ball over our third baseman's head, which would have been the tying run, and Anthony was backing up third base in full extension, caught the ball on the outfield grass and jumped to his feet to prevent that run from scoring. It was almost like the play where Jeter is against Oakland in the playoffs, running in front of the catcher, cuts the ball and flips the ball to Posada. I mean, that's just the same play, but on a different part of the field. He shouldn't have been there, but his instincts took over and knew that he had to be.
That's a great analogy, Coach, and as we've come to learn, he idolized Derek Jeter growing up, and he speaks about his parents allowing him not to go to school that day when the Yankees won in 2009, and he goes to the parade, and he's looking at all of these players on the floats going by, and especially Jeter, and it's just larger than life, and I guess we should explain that for his parents to let him not go to school is a big deal because both of his parents are doctors, and they take education of paramount importance. Coach, you mentioned something to me the other day when I was speaking to you, preparing for this, and I just loved it. When Anthony came back from Panama, when he comes back with the gold medal for Team USA, you're not only his coach, but you're also his math teacher and his accounting teacher. So he walks into the class and you said, "Good job, but you missed a lot of work. Let's get right down to it." So I just loved that. And just tell us about Anthony, the student, for a moment, if you will.
Well, the young man is probably one of the best students that I've had in the classroom. I don't know if he's ever received a B at Delbarton. We're talking about an elite student. Everything he does with a purpose, and his work ethic is second to none. So when Jack and Anthony had to miss some time from school in the fall to participate with Team USA, they missed a fair amount of school. But both of them who had the opportunity to go to Vanderbilt, and that's where Jack's heading, demonstrated through their Delbarton career that they're terrific baseball players, but they are unbelievable students. And it's just a sign of maturity, a sign that he's got everything together. And that day he walked into my classroom, it was, all his peers were over the moon about the gold medal, and his performance in that tournament was crazy good, and everyone was congratulating him. And I walked over to him and I said, I'm glad you're back. Congratulations. But who did you guys play? The 12U team over there? I think the final score was like 19-0, and it was a tribute to what a team they assembled for Team USA. I think every boy on that roster was taken in the MLB draft a couple of weeks ago. So what a great experience for those guys.
Amazing, Coach. And I'll pick it up from there because it's been quite a month of June for Anthony, yourself, Delbarton. So we'll do a little bit of a timeline if we can. And you were good enough to provide to us a quick video. It's very brief, but it's very telling. You were at the Volpe's house. They had they had everybody over for it was June 3rd, and it was the draft night, and it was broadcast on MLB Network, coming from Secaucus, New Jersey, and Commissioner Manfred was there. So, without further ado, we're going to go over to a quick video that you shot, and then we're going to come back.
With the 30th selection of the 2019 MLB Draft, the New York Yankees select Anthony. He's always in the right place at the right time.
Coach, I love it. It's brief. Quite frankly, not really a word was really spoken, but it speaks volumes. What jumps out to me was how composed he was. And for anyone at any age to be in that spot, to have composure, but a teenager, no less. And you know what the other thing that jumped out at me, Coach, was the humbleness, and it was almost like he was deflecting the attention. And the thing that really gives you goosebumps is his teammates were happier for him than he was. So this is quite a special young man that everybody loves.
Yeah, I think everybody, it's safe to say everybody roots for him. Obviously his teammates, his coaches, his family. But even his opponents, the way he plays the game and handles himself, I think, you'd be hard pressed to find somebody who roots against him. I can't see the video, because I'm on the phone with you, but I got goosebumps just listening, and it brings me back to that moment, and I remember how composed he was, and just humble, and that's who he is. And as you can see, his teammates were genuinely, over the moon for him at that moment, as was all of us. So, that's what makes him special. He's a terrific baseball player. He's a terrific student, but he's a better human being. He's one of a kind.
Amazing, Coach. What we're going to do is we're going to go over to our next graphic, and we're going to continue the timeline. So ladies and gentlemen that are watching this story unfold, June 3rd, we just experienced it with you. June 6th, only a few days later, you're playing for the New Jersey State Championship. You were able to win 4-3. The interesting thing, Coach, is, and you tied something into Jeter, I'm going to tie something in also. The game starts off, first batter gets hit by a pitch, next batter, Volpe, as you said, he likes to stay inside the baseball. He turned and crushed and hit a towering home run. He pulled it to left field and set the tone for that game. Correct, Coach?
That is correct.
Amazing. It really is. If we can, we have, again, we'll go over to our next graphic. Is just, here we go, with everybody piling on, and he's right on top. The celebration begins. It's like a storybook. So if you really want to continue, Coach, to circle back to Derek Jeter, the parallels are there. We'll go over to our next graphic, which you provided to me. It's you and Anthony hugging each other after that game. It had to be not only celebratory, but a sense of relief, Coach, because, my goodness, you had Al Leiter's kid on your team. You have Volpe on your team. It's not easy to win the championship game that you're supposed to win, correct?
Well, a year ago we were on the wrong side of that game. We lost 1-0 in a heartbreaker, and I think our guys used that loss as motivation, and they worked as hard as they possibly could to get back to that game. And to get back to that game, you got to go through the likes of Don Bosco, Seton Hall Prep, Bergen Catholic, St. Joe's, Pope John. So there's no guarantees. And once we made it back there, we saw the same opponent in St. Augustine Prep, who is a terrific program, a team that we've played the last 3 years in the state final. And we saw a drafted kid on the mound. And, Anthony got a pitch on the inner half and, put a good swing on it and gave us a huge lift in that game.
Coach, and again, when you described it to me previously, when I saw some clips, we're going to go over to our next graphic if we can. It reminded me very much of Game 4. Anthony, close your eyes, you're a Met fan. Game 4 of the World Series in 2000, where Jeter's leading off, and sure enough, out of character for him, he turns on a fairway, and he just hit a towering home run to left field, set the tone for that game, and the Yankees went on to win that World Series, and Jeter won MVP honors for that. Coach, I asked you to do me one favor, if you could, to ask Anthony one question that I had a hunch about. We talk so much about Jeter, and when I looked at Anthony Volpe, and I looked at his build, I looked at his frame, and I looked at his demeanor, there was a current player that jumped out at me that I thought that maybe he emulated, and you were good enough to ask him. So could you tell us of the current players? We know Jeet he idolizes, but of the current players, who does he emulate?
Alex Bregman.
Yep.
So, there's been a lot of comparisons, but, for Anthony to say that, Bregman's the guy he emulates, I think you were spot on, Mike, when you made that call. And, I don't see Bregman play enough, but I know of his track record and his success and, his makeup and his career. I think that's a fair comparison, and I think that's somebody that's pretty good to emulate.
Just to get inside your mind, just for 1 second, Bregman went to LSU. He went to LSU for 3 years. The thing that struck me, Coach, was the intensity, the look in his eyes, but also that team-oriented way. There's just the intangible jumps out at me, and it's very Jeter-like. But this is from the current thing. Was Coach, again, we were talking about walking a fine line. Was there any moment that you, in a private moment with Anthony, gave your opinion as to whether he should maybe sign with the Yankees or maybe go to college? And we know that he had expressed interest in going to Vanderbilt along with Jack.
Well, I think both boys were in a win-win situation. To go to Vanderbilt University and play play there for Coach Corbin is an unbelievable experience, and to get to compete for a College World Series. The fallback is, you get taken high in the draft and you sign for a crazy amount of money. I mean, you're in a win-win. You're in the driver's seat. But I think it's a family decision. Anthony and I, have talked about 100 million things under the sun. But the draft and going to school, that was kind of something that, when he asked me, I would be very vanilla with my answers, and I would let him know, the pros and cons. But I wanted Anthony and his family to make that decision. I didn't want to influence my opinion on him. I think ultimately he made a great decision, being taken in the first round and drafted by the team that he's always dreamed about playing for. I mean, it's a fairy tale. So for Anthony, it was a great choice.
Coach, we're going to, well said, and we wouldn't expect anything else from you, but that was fantastic what you just said, and you handled it perfectly. We're going to go ahead in our timeline just a few days after that, June 10th. You were there, Coach, Yankee Stadium. And Anthony does sign with the Yankees. A signing bonus, $2.7 million. So I guess a green wave of a different nature. But the thing is that we have a graphic, and again, you were there. We have Brian Cashman, we have Anthony, and Damon Oppenheimer. Tell us about that day.
Well, that was a real honor for me to be invited to share in that moment. And I've been to Yankee Stadium a bunch of times, but I've never had the pleasure of being in the what they call the war room, and where they make all their big decisions, and to witness that moment for that boy and that family is something that I'll never forget. Obviously, we all hear about what a first-class organization the Yankees are, but I got to live that up close and personal for a few hours, and the way they treated Anthony, and I guess the whole experience was off the charts, something that you could never envision. And to meet those gentlemen, Brian Cashman and Op, and have conversations with them, that was a real smile for me.
A class organization personified, and for Anthony, it just feels like a perfect fit. Brian Cashman gets all the accolades, and rightfully so. He's done a tremendous job. But I'm glad you also mentioned Damon Oppenheimer. I'm a big fan of his. When you think of on the field, this current crop, you have Gardner and Betances, David Robertson, he drafted too. Last year was his last year with us. But Canely, and you look around and you say, Greg Bird, and it's not his fault that Greg Bird got hurt. I mean, the talent was there. And oh, by the way, Aaron Judge. I mean, just every team in Major League Baseball had a chance to draft him, but Oppenheimer did. He was a compensatory pick. It was a sandwich pick. It wasn't even, so everybody really had an opportunity to grab him. So that was an
tribute to their scouting department as well. And a gentleman by the name of Matt Hyde, who probably spent 12 or 15 afternoons at Fleury Field at Delbarton School watching Anthony play, did his due diligence, and that's kind of where this all started.
Coach, as if this story isn't compelling enough, okay, here's where people viewing at home, I mean, here's where it goes to another level. Before I go to the next graph, I'm just going to say it's a picture of Coach coaching a game at Yankee Stadium, 2014. Of course, he won the game, but there's a little bit of a twist to it. On February 1st, 2014, as part of the NHL Stadium Series, Delbarton defeated Catholic Memorial School 3-0. And it was not a baseball game. It was a hockey game. Coach, you are not only the coach of the baseball team, you are the coach of Delbarton hockey. And if my brother just gave just what everyone at home watching this episode is saying, you have won 9 state championships with the hockey team, 6 in a row from 2008 to 2013. It's a New Jersey state record. It was never done before. So I know we just have to congratulate you. I know everybody that's watching is blown away. And Coach, if you can, just tell us briefly, and you know what, before you jump in, let our viewers know that as a player, in 2014, you were inducted into the New Jersey High School Ice Hockey Hall of Fame. You played 2 years. You were the captain for a very elite Deerfield Academy, and subsequent to that, Division I hockey at Providence College. Coach, it's an amazing story. If you can, just in a nutshell, we're going to keep it basically, with the baseball context. What is the most similar thing between your two coaching, the two hats that you wear? What's the most similar, and what's the biggest difference between baseball and coaching hockey?
Well, Mike, I'm really flattered that you say that. I don't think it's that amazing. It's kind of, what I chose to do. Out of college, I thought I was going to be on Wall Street and working in finance, and I got an opportunity to become a coach and at a young age, and I fell in love with it. So the parallels are very, very similar, because I teach at a very good academic school with great kids, and I coach kids who work hard, and we've had a lot of success in ice hockey, and we've had a real good amount of success in the baseball program, but it's about the kids, and you can't win without the horses, and I've been very fortunate to coach some very high-end kids in ice hockey and also in baseball, and it's just a pleasure to teach and coach at Delbarton.
Coach, you're too humble. We love it. I'll lead you into this one. We'll go over to our next graphic if we can. There's someone that you coached, Kenny Agostino, plays for the Devils. Before we do that, we have a nice shot of you, behind the bench. You look very, very handsome there. You look very intense yourself. And, to coach a bunch of hockey players, again, we know how tough a sport it is. We'll go over to our next graphic. Kenny Agostino, there we go. New Jersey Devils. Again, it speaks for itself, Coach. If that's not all enough, what it is that, ladies and gentlemen at home, get your Kleenex out now, because, this is, it goes to another level, because you're following in your dad's footsteps. If we can, we're going to go over to our next graphic. Your dad's name was Harry Shatel. That's your dad. He holds the record for the most wins of any New Jersey baseball coach. He had 752 wins at Morristown High School. It spanned 38 years. Our next graphic shows that they named the field after him. Coach, if you can, give us a few words about your dad, please.
Well, I can't hold a candle to my dad as a coach, that's for sure. What he did at Morristown High School for 38 years is something that, I'm extremely proud of that. It's like he started in the early 70s, and he coached for 4 decades, and he watched kids change and times change, and how he had to coach and adjust his style of coaching as time went on. And that was the remarkable thing about his career. He won right away in the early 70s, and he won all the way up to, I think, 2007 or 2006 when he retired. And he was just a tremendous listener, and he was all in it for the kids, and he was a great mentor. To grow up in a coach's home, I think it was only fitting that that I got into the profession, and I had I'd like to think a head start on other guys because of the lessons that he taught me at a young age. So I'm very fortunate to have had such a great dad and a great coach.
Well said, Coach. I asked you half jokingly, I said, do you have a son that's coming up? Because he's got very big shoes to fill. We'll go over to our next graphic. You made me chuckle, but tell us about your daughter and tell us what she says to you.
Well, she says that the day I retire is the day she's going to take over at Delbarton, coaching hockey and baseball. So, she's got that fire in her belly. She's a terrific soccer player. She's heading to Drew University next year to play soccer. I couldn't be more proud of her. She's the boy that I never had. So I'm very content having one daughter because she gets it. She's all in, and she's a big fan along with my mom. She comes to all our hockey games and our baseball games. So I'm extremely blessed to have a kid who's very involved in sports and involved with my teams.
You are blessed, Coach, and you're a fantastic dad. We know that, so it speaks for itself. These things don't happen by accident. Coach, when you think of Delbarton, when you look at the alumni and you say to yourself that there are many that have graduated to go on to business and politics and even entertainment. We'll go over to our next graphic. Here's a little bit of a fun fact. Peter Dinklage, the show Game of Thrones is was just a phenomenon, and Tyrion was went to Delbarton. I mean, it just really never ends. You guys have to be really proud of all of who you turn out. Not only athletes, but just all the way across the board.
Yeah, I think we've been very fortunate. The young men that come through our school, while they're there, like I mentioned, as athletes, they give everything they have to the school and to their teams, and they work very hard in the classroom. And we've had a great run at placing guys professionally who've gone on to do great things, not just in athletics, but as you mentioned, Peter Dinklage, a tremendous in his field, and there are thousands of others that are doing great things.
Coach, before we wrap it up, I just want to make sure I thank someone. We're going to go over to G20. I'd like to thank Tim Fitzsimmons because he's the gentleman that put me in contact with you. He's the Alumni Association president. He's class of '95. Very successful businessman in his own right. And I know his dad. His dad's name is Jim Fitzsimmons. I have a business relationship with Jim. He's a business associate. And Jim shared a funny story with me that I just briefly, because you and I were talking about it, and we were laughing about it last night. But he told me a story. I said, I have to first make sure the story is true. But we'll go over to our next graphic if we can. We've all heard Phil Rizzuto's stories. There's a million of them out there. But I mean, just here's another one, Coach. His grandson goes to Delbarton in the '80s, and Rizzuto goes, "Holy cow!" He goes, "Look, I'll pay for the uniforms, but you got to change from green." He goes, "You got to go to the blue pinstripes." Coach, I was rolling on the floor laughing when I heard that.
Well, that's 100% accurate. Father Carl was the coach back then in the '70s and early '80s, and I know Rizzuto said that he'll take care of the uniforms, but you got to wear the Yankee pins, and that's what they did. And they look sharp. And maybe I can get my athletic director to agree one day to go retro and let us wear the Yankee pins one day.
That is a priceless story. We all love Phil Rizzuto, and that just is, it's priceless. Coach, Jim Fitzsimmons, just in closing now, I want to thank you for your time. Jim Fitzsimmons mentioned one more thing that resonated with me, and it kind of puts a bow on the whole thing. And he says to me, he says, Mike, when it comes to Delbarton, they don't recruit athletes, they don't recruit for the school. He said, what they do recruit is top quality coaches. That's what he said. That's the formula. And coach, it's a formula that's worked so well. We want to wish you continued success with your, we don't know whether to call it a legacy or a dynasty or whatever it is, but coach, phenomenal, continued success, and thank you so much for taking a few minutes with us.
Mike, I'm extremely humbled and flattered that you say all those nice things, and it's been a pleasure talking to you.
Coach Shatel, I just want to let you know that I'm wearing this green shirt in honor of Delbarton. I want to let you know that. I'm wearing the blue blazer, Phil Rizzuto, so we'll balance it out a little bit, and just let you know that the fashion police, because it is here, to give me a citation or a violation or whatever you want to call it, but well worth it. But Coach, on a serious note, just want to say we're so proud of what you accomplished. We want to, thank you for being our special guest tonight. Just wanted to let you know that I wore the green shirt in honor of Delbarton, the Green Wave.